very few television shows that have caused such a moral divide like the Netflix series Dahmer. The drama series recounts the true story of Jeffrey Dahmer, a notorious serial killer from the United States who murdered 17 young men and boys between 1978 to 1991. Now, even though Dahmer had the best opening week for a new show on Netflix in history with more than 200 million hours in the first week of its release, it received pretty harsh criticism. Why? Well, both viewers and critics alike felt that it was incredibly disrespectful to the victims. First of all, it was made without the consent of any of the victims' families. And to top it off, the show's portrayal of their murders was deeply disturbing and brutal, very graphic. I mean, after watching it myself, I couldn't help but ask, did the producers go too far with this? And with the intense competition among streaming platforms, are we going to be seeing more production companies pushing both the moral and legal boundaries of what is acceptable to air? Well, joining us now is Wall Street criminal defense attorney Vinoo Varghse. So, I have so many questions about this, but obviously creating a fictional series about violent crimes is one thing, but when producers are trying to film a show about a true crime, what are the legal boundaries that they actually face? Do they have the right to tell these stories in whatever way they please?
The answer is pretty much yes. I mean, the Dahmer story, there's really no legal liability for Netflix, as the show is one of general interest, general public interest, and is considered in the public domain. So Netflix can use things that's out there and really face no liability or any sort of legal ramifications for producing a show like this. At least not yet. There's been no decision from a higher level court saying that something like this is improper.
Dahmer obviously caused a huge backlash with people questioning the whole nature of what we should actually air when it comes to true crime, to true crime drama specifically. Is there any legal precedent for the families of the victims in of course, Dahmer's murders to sue the makers of Dahmer and Netflix? And what about employees who say that they were traumatized in the making of this series? Because we saw a lot of stories like that as well.
So for crime victims and families of crime victims, the answer to your question, the first part of your question, is no. There's really no recourse for them when it comes to television producers. Now, if Dahmer were still alive and he tried to make money off of his exploits, there is basically something called the Son of Sam law, which is inspired by the famous murder in New York City during the 70s, where he was not allowed to profit off of his killings. But Dahmer was killed, he's not around. So basically the victims have no other recourse.
We even saw it in Dahmer. They spoke about how all of a sudden there were, this kind of glorification of Dahmer as a serial killer. And obviously there are people who somehow view these criminals as heroes of sorts. I don't understand it. But obviously there might be some fear that there could be copycat attacks as a result of seeing something like this. In Dahmer's case, in the series, it was very clear how he went about in carrying out these murders. I mean, you saw every single step of the way. So I guess the question would be, is there a legal precedent as well for changing how these stories can be told on film, per se?
If there happens to be a copycat killer of, let's say, Jeffrey Dahmer, and not just to one person, but to a series of people, and then the victims sue Netflix in saying that he was inspired, I still think they would have a because Dahmer was a real person. He was out there, and Netflix can put its disclaimers out saying inspired by true events or fictionalized dramatization. And until a court, or I should say some higher level court, not a low level court, comes out and awards, the families of certain crime victims,
we're not going to see a change.
There's nothing at this. We're not going to see a change. And because the idea is, like, how do you prove that but for the Netflix show, this guy wouldn't have done this stuff? I mean,
right,
I think
the story was already out there.
To prove.
The story was already out there in the past.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I guess my final question is, and again, it's another, everything's up in the air here, but streaming platforms like Netflix and Hulu are competing aggressively right now to get as many viewers as it can. It's become more competitive than ever. And of course, we know that there are cases. Well, what I want to know actually is this: have there been any landmark cases in the past where shows based on true stories have somehow seen backlash or any type of legal repercussion?
Yeah, there have been a couple of cases where individuals have sued. For example, Netflix. There was a Georgian chess player who sued them about their portrayal in one of their series, and it seems Netflix settled out of court for that, because if they've taken things that are patently untrue and they had knowledge that was patently untrue, then they would face liability for that. There's the case right now of somebody connected to Anna Delvey in the show Inventing Anna has brought a suit, but the question is, where will that go? I'm not sure, and I think at this point, networks like Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max in the United States, they're all competing for dollars, and you know, the more provocative they're going to become. I mean, look, it lured you, right, to watch the show. So clearly, they had whatever they're doing seems to be working.
Yeah, I mean, after watching the show, I almost felt like I had committed some type of crime and being a part of even just, you know, supporting it, I guess, by watching. But I'd like to thank you so much for joining us, Vinoo. Really fascinating. A lot of questions that have yet to be answered, but still good conversation.
Thank you.